We're once again joined this week by Stephanie Dobson. Stephanie is a local lawyer and mediator at Hankett Divorce Law and Mediation in Lloydminster. And Stephanie, school is coming up here for a lot of kids. It's going to be a lot of things for them to transition with just because of the COVID and the pandemic that happened. But some kids may also be dealing with a situation where their parents have separated or divorced. So how can parents make that transition a bit easier for the kids for the beginning of the school year if things have happened over the summer?
Yeah, and Stacey, what we really want to talk about today, or I thought we'd focus on, is kids who are newly going through that separation and divorce process. So situations where they maybe over the summertime or since they were last in person in school, that they're newly experiencing this, and so their friends are finding out for the first time, and it's really introducing the subject. So in order to prepare for the school year, the first thing, I've got two tips here. So the first thing that parents can do is to get involved in preparing for that school. So things like buying school supplies and planning activities. So as far as buying school supplies, for so many kids, buying of school supplies is really exciting. It's getting ready for the school year. It's important that parents make a plan in advance as far as how those school supplies or back to school clothes will be purchased, who will do the purchasing, how the costs will be shared, that sort of thing. And by planning that in advance, you'll help to create the most positive experience for the children so that it doesn't end up in conflict. And secondly, as far as registration is concerned, the registration for a lot of activities is coming up if it hasn't already happened before the school year starts. And there may be changes with a divorce looming as far as cost of activities may be more difficult for families when a divorce is on its way, and there might be some more time constraints. So really having that open discussion ahead of time between parents so that you can introduce that to the children and make sure that they're aware of what and of what they can do. Another thing under this heading to plan for the school year to start is to have parents relook at the calendar. So now that the school calendar is out, summertime is done, holiday time is done, and we're getting back into that school routine, there may need to be some changes that go on with the parenting schedule given school and activities coming up. And parents can get into the technology and get that shared calendar going and swap ideas for school days that are ending or school days non-school days where you might need to make parenting schedule arrangements, and parents can really have that planning session ahead of the school year starting.
So how can you make sure that the kids are supported educationally when they are dealing with a lot of things already that are happening in their lives? How can you go about making sure that that is successful?
Well, the first thing I recommend is to make sure that you have an open conversation with each of your children's teachers and supports and the administrators to make sure that they know that there's what's going on at home and how the separation and divorce is going. They're going to be there with your children all day, every day, Monday to Friday, and we want to make sure that they're aware that if there's any changes to the children's behavior or to how they're doing in school, how they're succeeding, we want to make sure that the teachers are hypersensitive to your children and their needs. Secondly, you can show solidarity as parents. So where there's issues where that's more than just education at school, it's best if you can be there for them in the way that they need. If there's issues that arise at school, make sure that both of the parents know about all of these issues. Make sure that both parents are on all of the email lists and make sure that both of you are able to be there to support your children together. And finally, get involved. So I mentioned earlier about the email list, there's Facebook, school lists, there's the classroom school list, there's all the notices, there's the class dojo, and all of these various ways you can get involved, class projects, homework, really making sure that you're understanding when your child is thriving and to help them with that, and to make sure you know if they're struggling, and then of course helping them in that way.
Well, and that kind of leads to the next question, Stephanie. How do you make sure that the kids are supported emotionally, especially if this is something that is new, and as you said, their friends might be talking about it or not speaking favorably to them about it? How can you make sure that they are getting that emotional support?
So I mentioned earlier about talking to the school administrators and the teachers, and of course, those are, especially the teachers in the classroom, those are going to be the people that are going to hear the stories from your children about what's going on at home. And so it's important, if you can prepare the teachers ahead of time and let them know what's happening, then when they hear the stories, it's not such a surprise to them, and they can have sort of a response, a supportive response ready for your child when those stories do come out. So when kids first go back into school, we know that their peers are going to be talking to them, asking them all sorts of questions. And even depending on their grade, they might be, the teacher might throw it out there to class, what did you do over the summer? How was your summer? All of these things. And that can really stir up some emotions if a child's response is, well, my parents divorced over the summer, or I haven't seen my one parent in X amount of time. And so it can really create some sadness, and it can create a dynamic within the classroom. So it is important before your kids even go to school to really talk to them and prepare them for how open they're willing to be, or open or private that they're willing to be, and what their comfort level is. So you can even role play a little bit with them and practice having questions asked to them, like, okay, so honey, if your friends ask you such and such questions, how would you respond? And you can role play that, like, where are you living? Do you have to move away? How often do you see each of your parents? Things like that are going to naturally come up. You can practice with your children. At the end of the day, it's the most important thing that you can do is to be a listening ear for your children, and to be there when they need to talk, or to find someone who is able to talk to them and help them to get their emotions out, like a school counselor, a family friend, a relative, that sort of thing.
All right, Stephanie. Well, thank you once again for speaking to us this week, and we will talk to you again next week.